There are parts of yourself you've been hiding. From others. From yourself. Parts you decided long ago were unacceptable. Too angry. Too needy. Too selfish. Too much. Too dark. So you buried them. Deep. Locked them away. Pretended they didn't exist. And you built your life on top of that burial ground. Built your identity, your relationships, your success. All on top of the parts you disowned. The parts you rejected. The parts you deemed too shameful to be seen. But those parts didn't disappear. They didn't die. They went underground, into your shadow. And from there, from the darkness, they've been running your life. Triggering you, sabotaging you, controlling you, through projection, through compulsion, through the very patterns you can't break. You judge others and wonder why you're so reactive. You sabotage your success and wonder why you can't get out of your own way. You repeat the same patterns and wonder why nothing changes. It's your shadow, the disowned parts, running you from the unconscious. And you can't heal what you won't see. You can't integrate what you won't acknowledge. You can't become whole while rejecting parts of yourself. So you stay fragmented, split, part of you visible, part of you hidden, and that split is exhausting. Is limiting, is keeping you from wholeness, from depth, from the full expression of who you are. This is shadow, the disowned parts of yourself. And they're not your enemy, they're not evil. They're not proof you're broken. They're parts of you that want to come home, that need to be integrated, that deserve to be welcomed back. Not to act them out, not to become them, but to integrate them, to make them conscious, to relate to them with awareness instead of denial. This is shadow work, not eliminating your darkness, integrating it, not transcending your humanity, embracing it, not becoming all light, becoming whole, light and dark, acceptable and unacceptable. All of you. Finally, this is how you become whole. Shadow is the parts of yourself you've disowned. That's the simplest definition, the most accurate. Everything about you that you decided was unacceptable, was too dangerous, was too shameful, was too much or not enough. You took those parts and you pushed them into the unconscious, into the shadow. And there they remain, not gone, not healed, not resolved, just hidden, just denied, just disowned. And from that place of disownment, from the shadow, they run your life in ways you don't see, in ways you don't understand, in ways you can't control. Until you do the work, until you bring them into consciousness, until you integrate them. Carl Jung introduced the concept of shadow. He was a Swiss psychiatrist, a depth psychologist, and he understood something most people miss, that the unconscious isn't just random. It's not just forgotten memories or suppressed trauma. It's structured. It contains everything you've rejected about yourself, everything you've deemed unacceptable, everything you've pushed away. And that rejected material doesn't disappear. It forms a structure, the shadow, your personal shadow, made up of all the parts of you that you decided couldn't be part of your conscious identity. Your ego, your sense of self. Here's how it works. You're born whole, complete, with the full range of human qualities: anger, joy, selfishness, generosity, power, vulnerability, darkness, light, all of it. You're born with all of it. But as you grow up, as you're socialized, you learn that certain parts are acceptable and certain parts aren't. Your family says, good children don't get angry. So you learn anger is unacceptable. Your culture says, men don't cry. So you learn vulnerability is unacceptable. Your religion says, selfish people go to hell. So you learn self-prioritization is unacceptable. And piece by piece, quality by quality, you sort yourself. This is acceptable. This is unacceptable. This can be part of my identity. This must be hidden. And the unacceptable parts, you don't eliminate them. You can't. They're part of you, so you repress them. You push them down, into the unconscious, into the shadow. And you build an identity without them. A performed identity. The good child. The strong man. The selfless woman. Whatever identity is acceptable in your particular family, culture, religion, you become that. And you disown everything that doesn't fit. everything that threatens that identity, everything that would make you unacceptable, unlovable, unsafe. This is how shadow forms. Through disownment, through rejection, through the sorting of self into acceptable and unacceptable. And the more rigid your upbringing, the more conditional your love. The more traumatic your childhood, the larger your shadow, because the more parts of you had to be hidden to survive. To be loved, to be accepted. Children don't have the luxury of being whole. They have to be acceptable. So they hide what's unacceptable. And that hiding creates shadow, massive shadow, made up of all the denied parts, all the rejected qualities, all the disowned emotions. Your shadow is not just darkness. This is crucial. Most people think shadow is just the bad parts, the anger, the jealousy, the cruelty, the selfishness. And yes, shadow contains those. But it also contains light, gifts, power, qualities you were told not to have, confidence you were told was arrogance, creativity you were told was impractical, bigness you were told was too much, power you were told was threatening. Any quality that wasn't acceptable got pushed to shadow, regardless of whether it was dark or light, negative or positive, bad or good. If it threatened your acceptability, it went to shadow. This is the golden shadow, the denied light, and it's as much a part of your shadow as your denied darkness. Shadow is unconscious. That's what makes it shadow. If you're aware of a quality, even a negative one, it's not shadow. It's conscious. Shadow is what you're not aware of. What you've repressed so deeply you genuinely don't see it. You don't believe you have it. You've disowned it so completely that you can't recognize it as yours. Someone says, "You seem angry." And you say, "I'm not angry." And you mean it. Because your anger is in shadow, disowned, unconscious. You genuinely don't see it. Even though everyone else does. That's shadow. The parts you can't see in yourself. But everyone else can. And shadow doesn't stay quiet. It doesn't just sit in the unconscious waiting. It's active. It's trying to be seen. To be expressed. To come home. And it expresses itself in distorted ways. Through projection. Through triggers. Through patterns. Through compulsions. Through self-sabotage. These are all shadow. Shadow trying to get your attention. Trying to be integrated. Trying to come back into consciousness. And the more you deny it, the more powerfully it expresses. The stronger your shadow becomes, until it's running your life from the unconscious, creating patterns you can't break, reactions you can't control, behaviors you can't explain. That's shadow, powerful, unconscious, controlling. Projection is shadow's primary language. You see your shadow in others. You judge them for the qualities you've denied in yourself. The person who irritates you with their neediness. You've disowned your need. The person who threatens you with their confidence. You've buried your power. The person who disgusts you with their selfishness. You've rejected your self-prioritization. What you judge most harshly in others is almost always what you've disowned in yourself. Jung said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Because irritation is projection, judgment is projection. Strong reaction is projection, and projection is a map. A map to your shadow. Follow what triggers you. Follow what you judge. And you'll find your shadow. Every time. Shadow also appears in patterns. Repetitive patterns. Patterns you can't break. Dating the same type of person. Sabotaging at the same point. Reacting the same way. Creating the same conflict. These patterns aren't random. They're shadow. Shadow creating loops. Trying to resolve something. Trying to integrate something, trying to show you something. But because it's unconscious, because you can't see it, you just repeat it. Over and over, wondering why nothing changes. Why you keep doing the same thing. Why you can't break the pattern. It's shadow. And until you make it conscious, until you see it, until you integrate it, the pattern continues. Here's what's important to understand. Shadow is not evil. This is the biggest misconception. People hear shadow and think my dark side, my evil, the bad part of me. But that's not what shadow is. Shadow is neutral. It's just the disowned parts. Some of those parts might be qualities you'd label negative: anger, jealousy, aggression, But they're not evil, they're human. They're emotions, drives, qualities that every human has. And disowning them doesn't make you good. It makes you fragmented, makes you unconscious, makes you controlled by what you won't acknowledge. Shadow work is not about eliminating your shadow. You can't eliminate it. It's part of you. Shadow work is about integrating it, bringing it into consciousness, making it visible, relating to it, not acting it out, not becoming it, but acknowledging it, accepting it, integrating it, so it's no longer running you from the unconscious. So you're no longer split between acceptable self and shadow self. So you can be whole, integrated, all of you, conscious. That's the goal. Not to become all light, but to integrate light and dark, not to eliminate shadow, but to make it conscious, to relate to it, to include it. In your wholeness, most psychological work focuses on the ego, on strengthening your sense of self, on building healthy identity. And that's important, but it's incomplete. Because if you're only working with your conscious self, if you're only addressing what you can see, you're missing half of yourself. You're missing shadow. And shadow is powerful, often more powerful than ego. Because shadow is unconscious. And the unconscious runs more of your life than the conscious. So you can do all the conscious work, all the therapy, all the self-help. But if you're not addressing shadow, you're only working with half. And that half will keep being undermined by the other half, the shadow half. Until you do the work, until you integrate. This is shadow work, deep work, uncomfortable work. Work that requires you to see what you've been avoiding, to acknowledge what you've been denying, to own what you've been projecting. It's not easy, it's not comfortable, but it's necessary. Necessary for wholeness, for integration, for psychological health, for spiritual depth, for becoming fully human, fully yourself. Not just the acceptable parts, not just the light, all of you, shadow included. That's the journey. That's the work. And it starts with understanding what shadow is, where it came from, how it operates, and why it matters. That's what we're doing here. Starting the journey into shadow, not to eliminate it, to integrate it, to become whole. Chapter 2. How shadow forms from childhood to now. You were not born with shadow. This is important to understand. You came into this world whole, complete, with the full range of human emotion, human quality, human capacity. You had anger, you had joy, you had sadness, you had power, you had vulnerability, you had selfishness, you had generosity. All of it, undivided, unrepressed, whole. A baby does not have shadow. A baby expresses everything, cries when sad, rages when frustrated, laughs when delighted, reaches for what it wants without shame, without performance, without hiding. That is wholeness. That is life before shadow. And then socialization begins. And shadow forms. Shadow forms through rejection, through the experience of parts of you being unacceptable, being punished, being shamed, being denied. And that rejection starts early. Usually in childhood, your family has rules, spoken and unspoken, about what is acceptable and what is not, about who you are allowed to be and who you are not. And as a child, you are completely dependent on your family, on their love, their care, their acceptance. Your survival depends on staying in their good graces. So when they communicate that certain parts of you are unacceptable, you have no choice. You hide those parts. You repress them. You push them into shadow, not consciously, not deliberately, but automatically, as a survival mechanism. Because being whole is less important than being loved, being accepted, being safe. The good child conditioning is where it starts for most people. Your parents want you to be good, to behave, to not cause problems, to not make their lives harder. And good in this context means compliant, means quiet, means not expressing certain emotions, not having certain needs, not being too much. So when you get angry, you are punished. Time out, withdrawal of affection, criticism. You learn anger is bad. When you express sadness, you are told to stop crying, to toughen up, to not be so sensitive. You learn sadness is unacceptable. When you want attention, you are told not to be needy, not to be so demanding. You learn need is shameful. And one by one, emotion by emotion, quality by quality, parts of you are labeled unacceptable. And you push them into shadow. Your emotions are the first casualties. Because emotions are messy, inconvenient, hard for parents to manage. So parents, often unconsciously, teach children to repress emotion. Anger is the most commonly repressed. Good children do not get angry. Do not yell. Do not hit. Do not rage. So you learn to hide your anger, to suppress it, to push it down, and it goes to shadow. But it does not disappear. It sits there, unconscious, building, until it explodes, or until it turns inward, becomes depression, self-attack, chronic tension. That is shadow anger, denied, unconscious, destructive. Sadness is also commonly repressed. Stop crying. Be strong. Do not be so sensitive. You learn that sadness is weakness, is burden, is too much, so you hide it. You perform strength. You smile when you are sad. You say you are fine when you are not, and the sadness goes to shadow, where it festers, creates numbness, emptiness, depression. Fear is another emotion pushed to shadow. Especially for boys, men do not fear. Men are brave, strong, fearless, so boys learn to hide their fear, to perform courage, to never admit they are scared, and the fear goes to shadow, where it becomes anxiety, hypervigilance, control. Need is also repressed, especially in families where parents are overwhelmed, where children learn early, do not have needs, do not ask for things, do not burden them. So you learn to be self-sufficient, independent, to never need anyone, and your need goes to shadow, where it becomes isolation, inability to connect, inability to receive. But shadow is not just emotions. It is also qualities, traits, parts of your personality that were not acceptable. If you were naturally loud and you were told to be quiet, your loudness went to shadow. If you were naturally creative and you were told to be practical, your creativity went to shadow. If you were naturally powerful and you were told not to be bossy, your power went to shadow. Any part of you that did not fit your family's expectations, that threatened their comfort, that challenged their control, went to shadow. And you became smaller, more acceptable, more compliant, and less whole. Trauma creates massive shadow. Because trauma is overwhelming, is life-threatening, is too much for a child to process. So the child dissociates, splits off, fragments, and those fragments go to shadow. The terror goes to shadow. The rage goes to shadow. The helplessness goes to shadow. And the child develops a false self, a performed self, a self that can function, that can survive. But underneath, the true self is fragmented, traumatized, hidden in shadow. This is why trauma survivors often feel split, feel like they are performing life, feel like their real self is buried, because it is in shadow. And healing trauma requires shadow work, requires bringing those split-off parts back, integrating them, making them conscious, so the person can be whole again. Your culture shapes your shadow too. Every culture has rules about what is acceptable and what is not. And those rules create collective shadow, cultural shadow. In Western culture, especially American culture, independence is valued. Self-sufficiency, not needing anyone. So dependence goes to shadow, vulnerability goes to shadow, the need for community goes to shadow. We become isolated, disconnected, performing independence while secretly craving connection. That is cultural shadow. In many Eastern cultures, the individual is less important than the collective, so individuality goes to shadow. Personal desire goes to shadow. Self-expression goes to shadow. People perform conformity while their true self is hidden, unexpressed. That is also cultural shadow. Gender conditioning creates profound shadow. Boys are taught to be strong, stoic, unemotional, aggressive, so vulnerability goes to shadow. Tenderness goes to shadow. Sadness goes to shadow. Fear goes to shadow. And boys become men who cannot feel, cannot connect, cannot be vulnerable, who perform strength while being emotionally dead inside. That is the masculine shadow. Girls are taught to be nice, agreeable, accommodating, pretty. So anger goes to shadow. Assertiveness goes to shadow. Ambition goes to shadow. Power goes to shadow. And girls become women who cannot say no, cannot set boundaries, cannot take up space, who perform niceness while resenting everyone. That is the feminine shadow. Religious conditioning creates shadow too. Many religions teach that humans are inherently sinful, fallen, bad. So your natural human qualities, your desires, your impulses, your body, all become shameful, all go to shadow. Sexuality is especially repressed in religious contexts. Natural sexual desire is labeled sinful, dirty, evil, so it goes to shadow, where it becomes shame, compulsion, addiction, or complete shutdown. Religious shadow is particularly damaging because it frames your humanity as sin, your natural self as evil. So your entire self goes to shadow, and you perform holiness, perform purity, while your actual human self is buried, denied, labeled as evil. Shame is the glue that binds shadow. Shame is what keeps shadow in the dark. What prevents integration? Shame says, these parts are too bad to be seen, too disgusting, too wrong. If anyone knew, if anyone saw, you would be rejected, abandoned, destroyed. So you keep them hidden, you keep them in shadow, and shame grows. Feeds on secrecy, feeds on hiding. The more you hide, the more shameful it feels. The more shameful it feels, the more you hide. This is the shame-shadow loop, and it is vicious. Breaking this loop requires bringing shadow into light, into consciousness, into acceptance, because shame cannot survive light, cannot survive being seen and accepted. Shame requires hiding, requires shadow. So integration, making shadow conscious, naturally heals shame. Shadow does not stop forming in childhood. It continues throughout life. Every time you reject a part of yourself, it goes to shadow. Every time you judge yourself, shadow grows. Every time you perform instead of being authentic, shadow accumulates. So even as adults, even with awareness, we continue to create shadow, continue to disown parts, continue to hide what feels unacceptable. This is why shadow work is lifelong, not one time. You are always discovering new shadow, always finding new parts you have disowned, always integrating, always becoming more whole. Here is what is important to understand. Your shadow formed as protection. As survival, you were not wrong for creating it. You were adapting. You were a child trying to be loved, trying to be safe, and hiding parts of yourself worked. It kept you loved, kept you safe, kept you acceptable. So do not judge yourself for having shadow. Do not shame yourself for the parts you hid. You did what you had to do. You survived. And now, as an adult, now that you are no longer dependent, now that you have choice, you can do something different. You can reclaim what you hid. You can integrate what you disowned. You can become whole. Not because you were wrong before, but because you are ready now, ready to be whole, ready to integrate, ready to do the work. Shadow formation is not your fault, but shadow integration is your responsibility. Your parents gave you shadow. Your culture gave you shadow. Your trauma gave you shadow. You did not choose it, but now you have it. And now you have a choice. You can continue living with it unconsciously, letting it run you, control you, sabotage you, or you can make it conscious, can integrate it, can become whole. That choice is yours. And making that choice, choosing integration, choosing wholeness, that is what shadow work is. That is the journey. Understanding how shadow formed so you can understand how to integrate it, so you can reclaim what was lost, what was hidden, what was disowned, and bring it home, bring it back, into consciousness, into wholeness, into you. Chapter 3. The signs your shadow is running you. Your shadow does not announce itself. It does not walk up and say, "Hello, I am your disowned anger, your repressed need, your hidden power. Shadow is unconscious, by definition, so you cannot see it directly. But you can see its effects. You can see the signs, the patterns, the reactions, the ways it shows up in your life. And learning to read these signs is learning to see your shadow, is learning to make the unconscious conscious. So here are the signs, the ways your shadow communicates, the ways it tries to be seen, to be integrated, to come home. Projection is the primary sign. The most reliable indicator, projection, is seeing your shadow in others, judging them for qualities you have disowned in yourself. And it happens automatically, unconsciously. You see someone being needy and you feel disgust. You see someone being confident and you feel threatened. You see someone being selfish and you feel rage. These reactions are not about them. They are about you, about your shadow, about what you have disowned. Jung said it perfectly. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves, because irritation is projection. Judgment is projection. Strong emotional reaction to someone else is almost always projection. Here is how to recognize projection. Pay attention to disproportionate reactions. When your reaction is bigger than the situation warrants. When you feel rage at someone for something small. When you feel intense disgust at someone for something minor. When you cannot stop thinking about how wrong someone is. That is projection. That is your shadow. Because if it were not your shadow, you would not react so strongly. You would notice. You would judge maybe, but you would not be triggered. You would not be obsessed. You would not feel such intensity. Intensity is the indicator. Intensity means this is mine, this is my shadow. This person is showing me something I have disowned. The classic projection question is, what do I judge most harshly in others? Make a list. The qualities you cannot stand. The behaviors that disgust you. The traits that enrage you. Write them down. Neediness, arrogance, selfishness, weakness, aggression, passivity, whatever they are. Write them and then ask yourself, do I have any of this? And your immediate answer will be, no, absolutely not. I am nothing like that. That is how you know it is shadow. The vehemence of the denial, the certainty that you do not have this quality. Because if you could see it in yourself, if it were conscious, it would not be shadow. Shadow is what you genuinely cannot see. What you have disowned so completely that you believe you do not have it, even though everyone else can see it. Even though it is obvious to everyone but you, triggers are another major sign. Being triggered means having a reaction that is bigger than the present moment warrants. Someone says something and you explode. Someone does something and you shut down. Someone forgets something and you spiral into rage or despair. That is being triggered. And triggers are always about shadow. Always. The present moment is activating something from your past. Some wound, some disowned part, some shadow material. And you are reacting not to what is happening now, but to what happened then. To what you have not integrated. To what is still in shadow. Common triggers include being criticized, being dismissed, being ignored, being controlled, being abandoned, being betrayed. When these things trigger you disproportionately, when your reaction is huge, that is shadow. That is an old wound, an unintegrated part. Something from childhood usually. Some way you were hurt that you never processed, never integrated. So it sits in shadow. And every time something in the present resembles it, even slightly, you react as if the original wound is happening now. That is shadow. Controlling you through triggers. And the only way to stop being triggered is to integrate the shadow, to make it conscious. To heal the original wound, repetitive patterns are shadow too. You keep dating the same type of person. You keep getting into the same conflicts. You keep sabotaging at the same point. You keep creating the same dynamic. These patterns are not random. They are shadow. Shadow trying to resolve something. Trying to integrate something. Trying to show you something. But because it is unconscious, because you cannot see it, you just repeat it. Over and over. Each time thinking, this time will be different. But it is not different, because you have not addressed the shadow. have not made it conscious, have not integrated it. So the pattern continues, the loop continues, until you do the work. Self-sabotage is a huge sign. You are about to succeed and you sabotage. You are about to be happy and you create drama. You are about to achieve something and you undermine yourself. This is shadow. Often it is a disowned belief. A shadow belief that you are not worthy, not deserving, not allowed to have success, to have happiness, to have what you want. This belief was installed in childhood, through criticism, through neglect, through messaging that you were not good enough. And you disowned it, pushed it to shadow, built a conscious identity of someone who is worthy, who is capable. But the shadow belief remains unconscious, and it sabotages, creates failure, proves the shadow belief right. You are not worthy. You do not deserve this. This is shadow undermining you from the unconscious. And until you make it conscious, until you integrate it, the sabotage continues. Compulsions are shadow-seeking expression. Compulsive eating, compulsive shopping, compulsive work, compulsive sex, compulsive anything. Compulsions are not about the behavior itself. They are about shadow trying to be expressed, trying to meet some need, some disowned need, some denied part. Maybe you disowned your need for comfort, so you compulsively eat. The eating is trying to meet the need you will not acknowledge. Maybe you disowned your need for control, so you compulsively work. The work is trying to create the control you will not claim. Compulsions are always trying to tell you something about shadow, about what you have disowned, about what needs to be integrated. Attraction and repulsion are both shadow indicators. You are intensely attracted to someone. You cannot stop thinking about them. You are obsessed. That is often shadow. You are attracted to qualities they have that you have disowned. They are confident and you buried your confidence. They are free and you denied your freedom. They are powerful and you hid your power. You are attracted to your shadow, seeing it externalized, living it through them. This is why the attraction is so intense, so compulsive. It is not just about them. It is about you, about your shadow, trying to be reclaimed through them. Repulsion is the opposite, but the same. You are intensely repulsed by someone. You cannot stand them. Everything about them irritates you. That is also shadow. You are repulsed by qualities they have that you have disowned. They are needy and you buried your need. They are weak and you denied your vulnerability. They are selfish and you hid your self-prioritization. You are repulsed by your shadow, seeing it externalized, rejecting it in them the way you rejected it in yourself. The intensity of the repulsion tells you, this is mine. This is my shadow, and I hate it in them because I hate it in me. Dreams are where shadow appears symbolically. The person chasing you in a nightmare, the monster, the enemy. These are often shadow figures, parts of yourself you have disowned, coming after you, trying to be integrated, trying to be seen. Jung said, the dream is the small hidden door in the deepest and most intimate sanctum of the soul. Dreams are the unconscious communicating, and shadow appears in dreams, not as itself, but as symbol, as metaphor, as character. Learning to read your dreams, to understand the symbolism, is learning to see your shadow, to hear what it is trying to tell you. Slips of tongue are shadow too. You say something you did not mean to say, something inappropriate, something true that you immediately try to take back. That is shadow. The unconscious speaking, Freud called them parapraxis, Freudian slips. And they are real. They are moments when the unconscious breaks through, when shadow speaks, when the disowned part expresses. Pay attention to your slips, to what you accidentally say, to what comes out unfiltered. That is shadow, showing itself, briefly, before you push it back down. Here is what all of these signs have in common. They are unconscious. You are not choosing them, not creating them deliberately. They are happening to you, happening through you, because shadow is unconscious, and the unconscious runs more of your life than the conscious. So these signs, these symptoms, are shadow running you from the darkness, from the disowned places. and you will keep experiencing them. Keep being triggered. Keep projecting. Keep repeating patterns. Keep sabotaging. Until you make shadow conscious. Until you see it. Acknowledge it. Integrate it. The good news is, these signs are gifts. They are not punishments. Not evidence that you are broken. They are communications from your shadow, showing you where the work is. Showing you what needs to be integrated. Showing you the way home. To wholeness. So when you get triggered, do not just react. Pause. Ask, what is this showing me? What have I disowned? When you judge someone, do not just judge. Pause. Ask, what in me is like this? What am I projecting? When you repeat a pattern, do not just repeat. Pause. Ask, what is my shadow trying to resolve? What needs to be integrated? These questions turn symptoms into information. Turn signs into maps. Maps to your shadow. And following the map is how you find your way. How you integrate. How you become whole. Chapter 4. The light you have hidden, golden shadow. Shadow is not just darkness. This is what most people miss. They think shadow work is about facing your demons. Your anger, your jealousy, your cruelty, your darkness. And yes, shadow work includes that. But shadow is not just what you would call negative. Shadow is everything you have disowned. Everything you have deemed unacceptable. Everything you have pushed into the unconscious. And that includes light. That includes gifts. That includes power. That includes brilliance. This is the golden shadow. The disowned light. And for many people, the golden shadow is actually larger than the dark shadow. More repressed. More denied. More deeply buried. The golden shadow is made up of qualities that are objectively positive but were labeled unacceptable in your particular context. Confidence that was called arrogance. Power that was called threatening. Creativity that was called impractical. Intelligence that was called showing off. Beauty that was called vanity. Ambition that was called selfish. Bigness that was called too much. These are positive qualities, gifts, strengths. But they were not safe to express, not acceptable in your family, your culture, your context. So you hid them, you dimmed them. You pushed them into shadow, just like you did with your darkness. And now they sit there, in the unconscious, disowned, unavailable, while you live smaller than you actually are. Here's how golden shadow forms. You are a child. You are naturally confident. You speak up. You take up space. You shine, and the adults around you react, not with celebration, with criticism. Who do you think you are? Do not be so full of yourself. Stop showing off. You are being arrogant. And you learn, confidence is not safe. Confidence gets you rejected, criticized, punished, so you hide it. You dim yourself. You perform humility. And your confidence goes to shadow, golden shadow, still there. Still part of you, but disowned, denied, inaccessible, or you are naturally creative. You see things differently. You have ideas. You express yourself. And the adults around you say, be practical. Be realistic. Stop daydreaming. Creativity does not pay the bills. Get your head out of the clouds. And you learn creativity is not valuable. Creativity is impractical. Creativity is childish. So you hide it, you stop creating. You perform practicality, and your creativity goes to shadow. Golden shadow. Your gift, denied, because it was not acceptable. Or you are naturally powerful, you have presence. You take charge, you lead, and people react. You are too bossy, too controlling, too much, especially if you are a girl. Girls are not supposed to be powerful, not supposed to lead. Not supposed to take up space, so you learn. Power is not feminine. Power is not acceptable. Power gets you rejected. So you hide it. You shrink. You perform niceness. And your power goes to shadow. Golden shadow. Your strength. Disowned because it threatened people. The golden shadow is particularly common in women. Because women are socialized to be small. To be nice. To be accommodating. To not threaten, to not take up space, to not be too much. So women learn to hide their power, their intelligence, their ambition, their confidence, their bigness. All of it goes to shadow, and women perform smallness, perform niceness, perform not threatening anyone, while their actual power, their actual gifts, their actual brilliance sits in shadow, disowned. This is why so many women feel like they are living half a life, like they are holding back, like there is more to them than they are expressing, because there is in shadow, in golden shadow, waiting to be reclaimed. But men have golden shadow too. Different qualities, different gifts. Men are taught to be strong, stoic, unemotional, so their tenderness goes to shadow. Their vulnerability goes to shadow. Their creativity goes to shadow. Their emotional intelligence goes to shadow. Anything that is not stereotypically masculine gets hidden, gets deemed unacceptable, gets pushed to shadow. And men perform strength, perform stoicism, perform invulnerability. While their tenderness, their depth, their emotional capacity sits in shadow, disowned. This is why so many men feel disconnected, feel numb, feel like they are performing masculinity instead of being themselves, because they are their actual self with all its complexity, its tenderness, its depth is in shadow. Cultural context shapes golden shadow too. In some cultures, individual achievement is celebrated. So if you come from a culture where the collective is more important than the individual, your individuality goes to golden shadow. Your personal ambition goes to golden shadow. Your desire to stand out goes to golden shadow because it was not acceptable, was not safe, was labeled selfish. In other cultures, humility is valued above all. So confidence goes to golden shadow. Self-promotion goes to golden shadow. Claiming your gifts goes to golden shadow because it was labeled arrogant, pride, unacceptable. Religious context creates golden shadow too. Many religions teach that pride is sin, that claiming your power is ungodly, that standing out is vanity. So your gifts go to shadow. Your power goes to shadow. Your confidence goes to shadow because they were labeled sinful, and you perform humility, perform smallness, perform unworthiness, while your actual gifts, your actual power, your actual divine nature sits in shadow, disowned. This is religious golden shadow, and it is pervasive. Millions of people walking around with their gifts in shadow because they were taught that claiming them is sin. Tall poppy syndrome is another creator of golden shadow. This is the cultural tendency to cut down anyone who stands out, anyone who is too successful, too talented, too confident, too much. The tall poppy gets cut down, gets criticized, gets attacked. So people learn. Do not stand out. Do not be too much. Do not shine too bright. It is not safe. You will be cut down. So they hide their gifts. They dim their light. They perform mediocrity, and their brilliance goes to golden shadow. This is particularly strong in cultures that value equality, where standing out is seen as thinking you are better than others, as violating the collective, so people hide, to stay safe, to stay accepted. And their gifts sit in shadow, unused, unexpressed, wasted. Here is what is important to understand about golden shadow. It is just as damaging as dark shadow, maybe more. Because when you disown your darkness, you at least know something is missing. You feel the anger. You feel the need. You know something is being repressed. But when you disown your light, when you hide your gifts, you often do not even know what you are missing. You just feel vaguely unfulfilled. Vaguely like you are not living up to your potential. Vaguely like there should be more. But you cannot name it, cannot identify it. Because it is in shadow, golden shadow. And you have been hiding it so long, you have forgotten it is there. Golden shadow shows up in the same ways as dark shadow, through projection. You see someone being confident, and instead of being triggered negatively, you are fascinated, attracted. You cannot stop watching them, thinking about them. That is golden shadow projection. You are seeing your disowned confidence in them, living it through them. Or you see someone using their power and you feel threatened, jealous, critical. That is also golden shadow projection. You are seeing your disowned power in them. and judging them for having what you will not claim. Golden shadow also shows up in patterns. You keep dimming yourself in groups. You keep hiding your ideas. You keep playing small. These are patterns created by golden shadow, by the disowned light, by the gifts you will not claim. And these patterns keep you stuck, keep you small, keep you from becoming who you actually are, who you could be if you reclaimed your light, if you integrated your golden shadow. Imposter syndrome is often golden shadow. You achieve something and you feel like a fraud, like you do not deserve it, like you fooled everyone. That is golden shadow. You have disowned your competence, your intelligence, your gifts. So when you succeed, when you use those gifts, you cannot own it, cannot claim it, because the gifts are in shadow, disowned. So the success feels false, feels like it belongs to someone else, not to you. Integrating golden shadow heals imposter syndrome because you reclaim your gifts, you own your competence, you acknowledge your power, and then success feels real, feels earned, feels like yours. Self-sabotage is often golden shadow too. You are about to succeed and you sabotage. Not because you have disowned darkness, but because you have disowned light. You have a shadow belief that you are not allowed to shine, not allowed to be powerful, not allowed to be big. So when you are about to be those things, when you are about to claim your light, golden shadow sabotages, keeps you small, keeps you hidden, keeps you safe from the danger of being seen, of being too much, of being cut down. Here is the key to working with golden shadow. You have to give yourself permission. Permission to be powerful. Permission to be confident. Permission to be big. Permission to shine. You have been waiting for external permission. For someone to tell you it is okay. To celebrate you. To encourage you. But that permission is not coming. Or if it comes, you will not believe it. Because the prohibition is internal. The disowning is yours. So the permission has to be yours too. You have to give yourself permission to reclaim your light, to claim your gifts, to be who you actually are. Big, powerful, brilliant. Whatever your light is, you have to claim it, own it, bring it out of shadow. This feels dangerous. This feels risky because it was dangerous. When you were a child, when you were dependent, when shining got you punished, but you are not a child anymore. You are not dependent anymore. And while claiming your light might still get you criticized by some people, might still threaten people, might still get you cut down by the tall poppy cutters, you can survive that now. You have choice now. You can choose to shine anyway, to be big anyway, to claim your gifts anyway, despite the criticism, despite the discomfort, despite the fear. Because living small to keep others comfortable is not living. It is hiding. And you have hidden long enough. Integrating golden shadow is about reclaiming what you have denied, the confidence you called arrogance, the power you called threatening, the creativity you called impractical, the bigness you called too much. These are not faults. These are gifts. And they are yours. They were always yours. You just hid them. To be safe, to be accepted, to be loved. And now you can reclaim them, can bring them out of shadow, can integrate them. Not to become arrogant, not to dominate, not to be reckless, but to be whole, to be fully yourself, to express your gifts, to live your power, to shine your light. That is what you are here for. Not to hide, not to play small, not to dim yourself for others, but to shine fully, completely as yourself. And that requires golden shadow work, requires reclaiming your light, requires bringing it home, from shadow into consciousness, into expression, into your life. Chapter 5, Shame and the Shadow, the glue binding them. Shame is what keeps shadow in the dark. Shame is the glue, the lock, the force that prevents integration. Because shame says, these parts are too bad to be seen, too disgusting, too wrong, too shameful. If anyone knew, if anyone saw, you would be rejected, abandoned, destroyed. So you keep them hidden. You keep them in shadow. And the shame grows, feeds on the hiding, feeds on the secrecy. The more you hide, the more shameful it feels. The more shameful it feels, the more you hide. This is the shame shadow loop, and it is vicious. And it is what keeps most people from doing shadow work, from integrating, from becoming whole, because shame says, do not look there, do not go there, do not see that. It is too shameful. And so shadow remains unconscious, disowned, running your life. Shame is not the same as guilt. This is crucial to understand. Guilt says, I did something bad. Shame says, I am something bad. Guilt is about behavior. Shame is about identity. Guilt says, I made a mistake. Shame says, I am a mistake. Guilt is specific. I lied. I hurt someone. I failed. Shame is global. I am bad. I am wrong. I am unworthy. Guilt can be healthy. It tells you when you have violated your values, when you have hurt someone, when you need to make amends. Guilt motivates repair, motivates change, motivates growth. Shame does not. Shame motivates hiding, motivates denial, motivates more shame. Toxic shame is shame that has become your identity. You do not just feel ashamed, you are ashamed. Shame is who you are. You are fundamentally flawed, fundamentally unworthy, fundamentally bad. This is not true, but it feels true. Because toxic shame was installed early, usually in childhood, through criticism, through abuse, through neglect, through messaging that you were not good enough, not wanted, not worthy. And you internalized that message, made it your identity. I am bad. I am wrong. I am shameful. And that identity creates shadow, massive shadow. Because if you are fundamentally bad, then everything about you is suspect. Everything must be hidden. Everything must be controlled. Everything must be disowned. Shame is how shadow gets created in the first place. Remember, shadow forms when parts of you are deemed unacceptable. And what makes them unacceptable? Shame. Your parents shame your anger. You are a bad child for being angry. So anger becomes shameful, goes to shadow. Your culture shames your sexuality. You are dirty for having sexual feelings. So sexuality becomes shameful, goes to shadow. Your religion shames your body. Your body is sinful, lustful, evil. So your body becomes shameful. Goes to shadow. Shame is the mechanism, the force, the message that says, this part of you is too bad to exist, must be hidden, must be disowned, must go to shadow. Family shame is particularly powerful because it is installed when you are most vulnerable, most dependent, most needing love and acceptance. Your family has shame. Maybe about money, about status, about appearance, about addiction, about mental illness, about something. And that family shame becomes your shame. You absorb it as a child. You learn, we do not talk about this. We hide this. We are ashamed of this. And you carry that shame, make it yours. And it creates shadow. Family shadow, secrets, things that cannot be mentioned, parts that cannot be seen, all held in place by shame. Cultural shame varies by culture, but every culture has it. Shame about body, shame about sexuality, shame about emotion, shame about need, shame about dilia, shame about difference. What is shameful in one culture might be celebrated in another, but every culture has things it deems shameful. And if you have those things, if you are those things, you learn to hide them, to feel ashamed of them, to push them to shadow. This is cultural shadow, created by cultural shame, and it is collective. Millions of people carrying the same shame, hiding the same parts, creating the same shadow. Religious shame is often the deepest, the most damaging because it frames your humanity as sin, your natural self as evil, your body as shameful, your desires as wrong, your very existence as fallen. This creates profound shame. Shame about being human, shame about having a body, shame about having needs, shame about having desires, and all of it goes to shadow. Your humanity goes to shadow, and you perform holiness, perform purity, perform transcendence, while your actual human self, with all its needs and desires and impulses, sits in shadow, deeply ashamed, deeply disowned, deeply split. Here is how shame keeps shadow locked away. Shame says, if you look at this, you will see how bad you are, how wrong you are, how unworthy you are, and you cannot handle that. You will fall apart. You will be destroyed. So do not look. Do not see. Keep it hidden. Keep it in shadow. And you believe this. You believe that your shadow is so shameful, so bad, so unacceptable, that seeing it would destroy you. But this is a lie. This is shame lying to you. Your shadow is not that bad. Your shadow is human. Your shadow is disowned parts, disowned emotions, disowned needs, disowned qualities, none of which are actually shameful, none of which are actually bad. They are just human. And humanity is not shameful. But shame makes you believe it is. Shame makes you believe that your anger is evil, that your need is pathetic, that your sexuality is disgusting, that your power is dangerous. And so you keep them hidden, keep them in shadow, where they cannot be seen, cannot be judged, cannot prove how bad you are. But here is the paradox. Keeping them in shadow makes them more powerful, more controlling, more destructive. Because shadow that is denied, shadow that is shame-bound, shadow that is locked away, operates unconsciously, sabotages you, controls you, creates the very outcomes you fear. You are afraid your anger will destroy relationships, so you repress it, push it to shadow, and it comes out passive-aggressively, resentfully, explosively, and destroys relationships anyway. That is shame-bound shadow, doing more damage hidden than it ever would have done conscious. Shame also prevents you from seeking help, from talking about your struggles, from being vulnerable. Because shame says, do not tell anyone. If they know, if they see, they will reject you. So you stay silent, stay isolated, stay alone with your shadow, and the shame grows. Because shame thrives in isolation, thrives in secrecy, thrives in silence. Brené Brown says, shame cannot survive being spoken. Shame cannot survive empathy. And this is true. When you speak your shame, when you voice what you have been hiding, when you let someone see your shadow, and they respond with empathy, with acceptance, with humanity, the shame begins to dissolve, begins to lose its power, begins to release its grip on shadow. Self-compassion is the antidote to shame. Self-compassion says, I am human. Humans are imperfect. Humans have darkness, humans have shadow, and that is okay. That does not make me bad. That makes me human. Self-compassion allows you to see your shadow without being destroyed by it. Allows you to acknowledge your darkness without identifying as darkness. Allows you to own your disowned parts without shame. This is how shadow integration happens. Not through self-judgment, not through self-criticism, not through more shame, but through self-compassion. Through accepting yourself as human, as imperfect, as whole. Here is what happens when you bring shadow into light. When you make it conscious, when you see it, acknowledge it, own it, the shame begins to dissolve. Because shame cannot survive being seen, cannot survive light, cannot survive consciousness. Shame requires hiding, requires secrecy, requires shadow. When you bring shadow into light, when you make the unconscious conscious, when you see what you have been hiding, you realize this is not that bad. This is not shameful. This is just human. And the shame releases, the grip loosens. The shadow begins to integrate. This does not happen instantly. Shadow work is a process. Shame is deep. Shame has been there a long time. It does not dissolve in one moment, but it begins to dissolve. With each piece of shadow you make conscious. With each disowned part you acknowledge. With each shameful thing you bring into light and realize, this is not shameful. This is just me. The shame weakens. And as shame weakens, integration becomes possible, becomes easier, becomes natural. Shame tells you that your shadow is your enemy, that it is evil, that it must stay hidden. But shame is lying. Your shadow is not your enemy. Your shadow is you, disowned, rejected, exiled, waiting to come home. And shame is the guard, the force keeping it in exile, telling you it is not safe to let it return. that you will be destroyed if you integrate it. But you will not be destroyed. You will be whole. You will be integrated. You will be free. Free from the exhaustion of hiding. Free from the control of the unconscious. Free from the shame that has been running your life. So the work is this. Notice shame. Notice when it arises. Notice what it says. Notice what it protects. Notice what it keeps hidden. And gently, compassionately, begin to question it. Is this really shameful? Or is this just human? Is this really too bad to be seen? Or is this just a disowned part wanting to come home? Is this really going to destroy me? Or is this actually going to make me whole? Question the shame. Challenge the shame. And slowly, piece by piece, bring what has been hidden into light. Not to judge it, not to be ashamed of it, but to see it, to acknowledge it, to integrate it. And as you do, as you bring shadow into light, the shame dissolves, and you become whole. Not perfect, not shameless, but whole, integrated, human, and free. Chapter 6. Recognizing your shadow, projection as mirror. You cannot integrate what you cannot see. This is the fundamental challenge of shadow work. Shadow is unconscious. By definition, you cannot see it directly. You do not know it is there. You genuinely believe you do not have the qualities you have disowned. So how do you find shadow? How do you make the unconscious conscious? How do you see what you cannot see? Through projection, through the mirror that others hold, through recognizing that what triggers you, what you judge, what you react to disproportionately in others, is showing you your shadow, is revealing what you have disowned. This is the key. This is how shadow becomes visible. Through projection. Projection is a psychological defense mechanism. You take something that is yours, something internal, and you project it outward. You see it in others instead of seeing it in yourself. You judge them for having it. You react to them for expressing it. You are triggered by them for being it. But it is not about them. It is about you. It is your disowned part, your shadow, appearing externally, in them, so you can see it, so you can recognize it, so you can reclaim it. Jung understood this perfectly. He said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Because irritation is projection, judgment is projection, reactivity is projection, and projection is a map, a direct map to your shadow. Here is how projection works mechanically. You have disowned a quality, let us say neediness. You decided as a child that neediness was unacceptable, was shameful, was too much. So you repressed it, pushed it to shadow, and you built an identity of someone who is independent, self-sufficient, not needy. You genuinely believe this about yourself. I am not needy. I do not need anyone. But the neediness did not disappear. It is still there, in shadow, unconscious. And now when you encounter someone who is needy, who expresses need, who asks for help, you react strongly. You feel disgust, irritation, judgment. You think they are so needy, so pathetic, so weak. Why can they not just handle things themselves? And you believe this is about them, about their neediness, but it is not. It is about yours. The neediness you disowned, the neediness in shadow. That is what you are reacting to. That is what you are judging in them, because you cannot see it in yourself. The intensity of your reaction is the indicator. If you notice someone is needy and you think that is not for me, but it is their choice, that is not projection. That is observation, preference. But if you notice someone is needy and you feel intense disgust, if you cannot stop thinking about how pathetic they are, if you feel rage or contempt or obsessive judgment, that is projection. That intensity means, this is mine. This is my shadow. This person is showing me what I have disowned. And my reaction is showing me that it is still alive in me. Still operating, just unconsciously. In shadow. So the practice is this. Pay attention to your triggers. Make a list. Who triggers you? What about them triggers you? What quality, what behavior, what trait? Write it down. The coworker who is always asking for help. The friend who is always talking about themselves. The family member who is always angry. The stranger who is too confident. The person who is too weak, too strong, too emotional, too logical, too much, not enough. Whatever it is, write it down. And then ask yourself the essential question, what in me is like this? Not, do I have this? Because your immediate answer will be, no, I do not. I am nothing like them. But what in me is like this? Where in my life, even in small ways, even in ways I do not acknowledge, do I have this quality? This question bypasses the defense, bypasses the denial, because you are not asking if you are needy. You are asking where neediness shows up in you. And if you are honest, you will find it. Maybe you are needy with your partner, but you do not call it neediness. You call it wanting connection. Maybe you are needy for validation, but you do not call it neediness. You call it checking social media. Maybe you are needy for control, but you do not call it neediness. You call it being responsible. The neediness is there, just dressed in different clothes, just called different names, just disowned and projected. And recognizing this, seeing this, is the beginning of integration. It's the beginning of reclaiming your shadow. The 3-2-1 process is a formal shadow work technique, created by Ken Wilber, and it is powerful. It works like this. Stage 1. Third person. You identify someone who triggers you, someone you judge, someone you react to, and you describe them in third person. They are so selfish. They only think about themselves. They do not care about anyone else. You write it out. You let yourself feel the judgment, the reaction, the projection. You do not censor. You let it out. Stage 2. Second person. You speak to them directly, as if they are there. You are so selfish. You only think about yourself. You do not care about anyone else. Why are you like this? You make it direct, personal. You let yourself feel the charge, the intensity, the projection fully activated. Stage 3. First person. This is where the work happens. You take everything you said about them and you make it about yourself. I am selfish. I only think about myself. I do not care about anyone else. And you sit with that. You feel the resistance, the denial, the discomfort, because this is your shadow. This is what you have disowned. And now you are claiming it, owning it, making it first person, making it yours. And as you do this, as you sit with it, as you let yourself feel it, you begin to see, you begin to recognize, yes, I have this. Maybe not in the way they have it, maybe not as obviously, but I have this. This is mine. This is my shadow. And recognizing it, owning it, that is integration beginning. Journaling is essential for shadow work. Because shadow is slippery. It hides, it denies. It says, no, not me, them. Journaling slows you down, makes you see, makes you honest. So keep a shadow journal. And every time you are triggered, every time you judge someone strongly, every time you have a disproportionate reaction, write about it. Who triggered you? What did they do? What quality did they express? And then turn it inward. Where do I have this? How do I express this? What part of me is like this that I have disowned? Write honestly. Write without censoring. Write what you do not want to admit, because that is shadow. That is what you have been hiding. And bringing it into writing, into consciousness, into acknowledgement, that is integration. Pay attention to patterns in your projections. You might notice you always judge selfish people, or you always judge weak people, or you always judge arrogant people. Whatever the pattern is, that is showing you a major shadow element, a quality you have profoundly disowned, a quality that is deeply in shadow. And that quality is probably also deeply connected to shame, to some early wound, some early message that this quality was unacceptable, was bad, was shameful. So noticing the pattern in your projections leads you not just to shadow, but to the core shadow, the foundational disowned parts, the ones that most need integration. Here is a powerful practice, the shadow inventory. Sit down with pen and paper and make 3 lists. List 1. People I judge. Write down everyone you judge, living or dead. People you know or public figures. Anyone you have strong negative judgment about. List 2. What I judge them for. Next to each name, write what specifically you judge. Their selfishness, their weakness, their arrogance, their neediness, whatever it is, be specific. Be honest. List 3. How I have this quality. This is the hard part. For each quality you listed, write how you have it, how you express it, even if differently. Even if you do not want to admit it, find it in yourself. Because if you judge it, you have it in shadow. And seeing it, admitting it, writing it down, that is reclaiming it. That is integration. You will resist this. Your ego will resist. Your ego does not want to admit you have these qualities, does not want to see shadow, does not want to integrate. Because ego is the performed self, the acceptable self, the identity you built to be loved, and shadow threatens that identity. Shadow says, you are not who you think you are. You are more. You are darker. You are more complex. You have all these disowned parts. And ego does not like that. Ego wants to stay in control, wants to maintain the performed identity. So it will resist. It will deny. It will say, this is ridiculous. I'm not like them. I do not have this quality. This is just psychological nonsense. And that resistance is normal. That resistance is expected. But push through it. Because on the other side of that resistance is truth, is wholeness, is integration. Reclaiming projected parts is about ownership. About saying, yes, I have this. I am this. Not in a way that means I am bad. Not in a way that means I am shameful. But in a way that means I am human. I am complex. I have all of these qualities. The ones I like and the ones I do not. The ones I show and the ones I hide. And all of them are me. All of them deserve acknowledgement, deserve consciousness, deserve integration. This is radical responsibility, not blaming yourself, not shaming yourself, but owning yourself fully, shadow included. Here is what changes when you start recognizing your shadow through projection. You stop being as reactive. Because you understand, when someone triggers you, it is not about them. It is about you, about your shadow. So the charge lessens. The reactivity decreases. You stop being curious instead of judgmental. Instead of thinking, they are so needy, you think, interesting, I am reacting to neediness. What does that mean about me? What have I disowned? This curiosity is transformational. It turns every trigger into a learning opportunity, into a shadow work opportunity, into an integration opportunity. You also become more compassionate toward yourself and others, because you realize everyone has shadow. Everyone has disowned parts. Everyone is projecting. Everyone is triggered. It is not just you. It is the human condition. So when someone judges you, you understand. They are projecting. This is their shadow, not about me. And when you judge someone, you understand. I am projecting. This is my shadow, not about them. And that understanding creates space, creates compassion, creates connection, because you are all human, all shadow-bearing, all on the journey toward wholeness. Projection is the gift, the mechanism through which shadow becomes visible, through which the unconscious becomes conscious, through which integration becomes possible. So use it. Pay attention to your triggers. Follow your judgments. Track your reactions. And ask the question, what in me is like this? Every time, consistently, relentlessly, and slowly, trigger by trigger, judgment by judgment, projection by projection, your shadow will reveal itself, will make itself known, will come into consciousness. And as it does, as you see it, as you acknowledge it, as you own it, integration happens. Shadow comes home. And you become whole. Chapter 7. Dialoguing with your shadow. Meeting the disowned parts. Recognizing your shadow is the first step. But recognition alone does not integrate. You can see your shadow, acknowledge your disowned parts, understand your projections, and still remain split, still remain fragmented. Because seeing is not the same as relating, and integration requires relationship, requires dialogue, requires actually meeting your shadow parts, speaking to them, listening to them, understanding them, not as enemies to be defeated, not as darkness to be eliminated, but as disowned parts of yourself that want to come home, that need to be heard, that deserve to be integrated. This is shadow dialogue, and it is the heart of shadow work. Shadow dialogue is based on a simple but profound idea. Your shadow is not one thing. It is not a single dark mass. It is made up of parts, disowned parts, each with its own history, its own wound, its own reason for being in shadow. Your inner critic is a part. Your people pleaser is a part. Your angry part is a part. Your needy part is a part. Your powerful part is a part. Each one was exiled for a reason. Each one went to shadow to keep you safe, to keep you loved, to keep you acceptable. And each one has something to say, something to show you, something to teach you. If you will listen, if you will meet them, if you will dialogue. Personifying shadow is how dialogue becomes possible. You give your shadow parts form, identity, voice. You do not just say, I have repressed anger. You say, there is an angry part of me, and you imagine that part. What does it look like? How does it sound? Where does it live in your body? Is it a child, an adult, a monster, an animal? You let it take shape. You give it presence, because abstract shadow is hard to relate to. But a personified part, a part with form and voice, you can speak to that. You can listen to that. You can dialogue with that. Here is how to begin. Find a quiet space, a private space, where you will not be interrupted. Sit comfortably. Close your eyes and call forward a shadow part. Maybe the part you judge most harshly, the needy part, the angry part, the selfish part, the weak part, whatever it is, call it forward. Invite it to appear and see what shows up, what image comes, what feeling arises, what sensation appears in your body. Do not force it. Do not manufacture it. Just invite and receive. Let the part show itself, however it wants to show itself. And then speak to it out loud if you can. In your mind if you must, but speak, address it directly as you there. You angry part, you needy part, I see you, I am here. I want to talk to you. This sounds strange. Sounds like you are talking to yourself. But you are talking to a part of yourself you have never spoken to. A part you have rejected, denied, exiled, and now you are inviting it back, giving it voice, giving it presence. This is not strange. This is integration beginning. Ask the part questions. Why are you here? What do you need? What are you trying to protect me from? What happened to you? What are you angry about? What do you need me to know? And then listen. Do not answer for the part. Do not assume you know. Listen, let the part speak, and it will. Through words, through feelings, through images, through body sensations. The part will communicate, and you listen, you receive, you stay present. Even if it is uncomfortable, even if the part is angry at you, even if the part is hurt by you, you listen. Because this part has been waiting to be heard, waiting to be seen, waiting to come home. The part might be angry, might blame you, might say, you abandoned me, you rejected me, you pushed me away when I needed you. And that might be true. You did disown this part. You did push it to shadow. Not because you were bad, but because you were surviving, because this part was not safe to express. But the part does not know that. The part just knows it was rejected. So it is angry, it is hurt, and it needs to express that. Needs you to hear that, needs you to acknowledge, yes, I pushed you away. I am sorry. I did what I had to do, but I am here now. I am listening now. I want to know you now. Here is what most people miss about shadow parts. They are not trying to destroy you. They are trying to protect you. Every shadow part, even the ones that seem destructive, has a positive intention, has a protective function. Your inner critic is not trying to make you miserable. It is trying to keep you safe from criticism, from rejection, from failure. By criticizing you first, by making you perfect, so no one else can attack you. Your people pleaser is not trying to exhaust you. It is trying to keep you loved, keep you accepted, keep you safe, by making everyone happy, so no one abandons you. Your angry part is not trying to destroy your relationships. It is trying to protect your boundaries, protect your worth, protect you from being used, from being disrespected, from being hurt. Understanding the positive intention is key because it shifts the relationship. The part is not your enemy. The part is a protector, a distorted protector maybe, a protector whose strategies no longer work, but a protector nonetheless. So when you dialogue with a part, when you understand its positive intention, you can thank it. You can say, "Thank you for trying to protect me. Thank you for trying to keep me safe. I understand now. I see what you were doing, and I appreciate it. Even if the way you were doing it was painful, was destructive, was limiting. I appreciate the intention. I appreciate you." And then you can negotiate. You can say, "I understand you were trying to protect me, but this strategy is not working anymore. This strategy is hurting me, hurting my relationships, hurting my life. So I need you to update. I need you to find a new way, a healthier way, a more conscious way to protect me. Can you do that? Can we work together? Can we find a new strategy?" And the part will respond, will agree, will update. If you are in dialogue, if you are in relationship, if you have acknowledged it, thanked it, shown it respect, the part will work with you, will integrate, will come home. Voice dialogue is a formal technique created by Howe and Sidra Stone, and it is powerful. You sit in one chair. That is you, your conscious self, your ego. And you imagine your shadow part sitting in another chair across from you. And you speak to the part, ask it questions, and then you physically move. You sit in the part's chair, and you become the part. You speak as the part. You answer as the part. You let the part's voice come through you, and then you move back to your chair, back to your conscious self, and you respond. You continue the dialogue, moving back and forth between self and part, between consciousness and shadow, between ego and disowned. This physical movement, this embodiment, makes the dialogue more real, more powerful, more integrative. Writing letters is another powerful practice. You write a letter to your shadow part. Dear angry part, dear needy part, dear powerful part, whatever it is, and you write to it. You tell it what you need to say, what you have been holding, what you have been avoiding. You apologize for disowning it. You acknowledge its pain. You ask it what it needs. You tell it you want to integrate it. You write honestly, vulnerably, without censoring. And then you write back. You let the part write to you. You let its voice come through your pen, and you write what it says, what it feels, what it needs, what it wants you to know. This is dialogue on paper, and it is profound, because the writing slows you down, makes you see, makes you receive what the part is actually saying, what it actually needs. Internal Family Systems IFS is a therapeutic approach based on parts work, and it offers a structure for shadow dialogue. IFS says every person is made up of parts, and these parts exist in relationship to each other. Some parts are exiled. Those are shadow parts, pushed away, disowned. Some parts are managers. Those are the parts trying to control everything, trying to keep the exiled parts from being triggered. And some parts are firefighters. Those are the parts that react when exiles are triggered, that try to numb, to distract, to protect through addiction or dissociation or rage. Understanding this structure helps you understand your shadow, helps you see the system, helps you dialogue with the whole system, not just one part in isolation. In IFS, you dialogue from yourself, capital S self. This is your core, your essence, the part of you that is not a part, that is whole, integrated, compassionate, wise. And from self, you dialogue with parts. You do not dialogue part to part, inner critic to people pleaser. That is just parts fighting. That is fragmentation continuing. You dialogue self to part, from your center, from your wholeness, to the disowned part. And from that place of self, you can be curious, compassionate, non-judgmental. You can ask the part what it needs. You can listen. You can understand. You can integrate. This is the key, dialoguing from self, not from another part, from wholeness. Here is what happens through shadow dialogue. The parts soften. They stop fighting so hard. Stop protecting so fiercely because they feel heard, feel seen, feel acknowledged. And that is all they wanted. To be heard, to be seen, to be acknowledged. They were not trying to sabotage you. They were trying to protect you. And when you understand that, when you thank them for that, when you work with them instead of against them, they relax, they integrate, they come home, not as separate entities, but as aspects of your wholeness. Aspects that are now conscious, now integrated, now working with you instead of against you. Shadow dialogue is not one conversation. It is ongoing. It is a practice. You do not dialogue with a part once and it is integrated. You dialogue regularly. You check in. You stay in relationship. Because integration is not a one-time event. It is a process, an ongoing process. And the more you dialogue, the more you stay in relationship with your shadow, the more integrated you become, the more whole you become, the more you stop fighting yourself, stop splitting yourself, and start living as yourself. Fully all parts included, all parts welcome, all parts home. So begin. Choose a shadow part, a part you have disowned, a part you judge, a part you hide, and invite it forward. Speak to it, listen to it, understand it, thank it, integrate it. This is the work. This is shadow dialogue. This is how disowned parts come home. This is how you become whole. Chapter 8. Integrating shadow into daily life. Integration is not acting out. This is crucial to understand. When you integrate shadow, when you reclaim disowned parts, when you make the unconscious conscious, you are not giving yourself permission to become your shadow. You are not saying, now I can be selfish, now I can rage, now I can dominate, now I can be needy without limits. That is not integration. That is acting out. That is swinging from one extreme to another, from total repression to total expression. And that is just as destructive, just as unconscious, just as fragmented. Integration is something else entirely. Integration is consciousness, is awareness, is relating to your shadow, not from it, not as it, but with it, consciously. Here is what integration actually looks like. You have reclaimed your anger. You have brought it out of shadow. You have acknowledged, yes, I have anger. I am capable of anger. I feel anger. That anger is mine. That is integration step 1. But integration does not stop there. Because now you have to learn to express anger healthily, consciously, not repressing it back to shadow, not acting it out destructively, but expressing it consciously in service of your boundaries, in service of your truth, in service of your wholeness. This is healthy anger. This is integrated anger. Anger that is conscious, anger that is expressed appropriately, anger that protects without destroying. Healthy anger says, I do not accept this. This is not okay. This crosses my boundary. This violates my values. This hurts me, and I am angry about it. Healthy anger sets boundaries, protects dignity, advocates for self. But healthy anger does not rage, does not attack, does not destroy. It expresses, it communicates, it stands firm. But it does not lose consciousness, does not lose control, does not become the anger. That is the difference. Unconscious anger, shadow anger, takes you over. You are not expressing anger. You are being anger. You are rage. You are attack. You are destruction. Conscious anger, integrated anger, you are expressing anger. You are aware of it. You are choosing how to express it. You are using it, not being used by it. The same is true for selfishness. Shadow selfishness is narcissism, is using people, is caring only about yourself, is complete disregard for others. That is shadow. That is the disowned selfishness acting out, destroying relationships, hurting people, creating isolation. Integrated selfishness is self-care, is self-prioritization, is saying, my needs matter too. I matter too. I am allowed to care for myself, to prioritize myself, to put myself first sometimes. This is not narcissism. This is self-respect. This is healthy selfishness. And it actually improves relationships because you are not overgiving, not resentful, not martyring. You are taking care of yourself so you can show up for others from fullness, not from depletion. Power is the same. Shadow power is domination, is control, is using power over others to crush them, to diminish them, to make yourself feel big by making them feel small. That is shadow power. That is power acting out, destructive, harmful, creating fear and resentment. Integrated power is empowerment, is using your power to create, to build, to lead, to protect, to stand in your worth, to take up space, not to dominate others, but to be yourself, fully, without shrinking, without apologizing, without hiding. Integrated power empowers others too, does not need others to be small to feel big, can be powerful while others are powerful. That is integration. That is healthy power. Neediness is another one. Shadow neediness is clinginess, is dependence, is demanding, is making others responsible for your emotional state, for your happiness, for your worth. That is shadow neediness acting out, exhausting people, pushing them away, creating the very abandonment it fears. Integrated neediness is vulnerability, is admitting, I need connection, I need support, I need help sometimes. I'm not completely self-sufficient. And that is okay. That is human. Integrated need asks clearly, asks directly, but does not demand, does not manipulate, does not make the other person responsible. Just asks and accepts whatever response comes. That is integration. That is healthy need. Shadow in relationships is where integration matters most. Because relationships trigger shadow. Constantly, your partner will activate every disowned part, every shadow element, every unintegrated piece. That is what intimacy does. That is what closeness does. It reveals shadow. And when shadow is revealed, you have a choice. You can project it onto your partner. You can blame them. You can make them the problem. That is unconscious. That is shadow running the relationship. Or you can recognize it, can own it, can say, this is my shadow being triggered. This is my disowned part. This is my work. Not yours, mine. That is integration. That is conscious relationship. Authentic relating requires shadow integration. Because authentic means real, means whole. Means not just showing your acceptable parts, not just performing your good qualities, but being all of yourself, including shadow, including the parts you are not proud of, including the parts that are messy, complicated, human. This does not mean dumping your shadow on your partner. Does not mean using them as your therapist. Does not mean making your shadow their problem. It means being honest, being real, being vulnerable about all of you, not just the polished version, and inviting them to do the same, to be all of themselves, shadow included. That is intimacy. That is real connection. Connection between whole people, not performed people. Shadow at work is tricky, because work is professional, is public, is not the place for full shadow expression. You cannot rage at your boss, cannot act out your neediness with colleagues, cannot dominate in meetings. That is not integration. That is inappropriate. So at work, integration looks different. Integration at work means being aware of your shadow, recognizing when it is activated, when you are triggered, when you are projecting, and managing it consciously, not repressing it, not acting it out, but managing it. You feel the anger. You acknowledge it. You acknowledge it. But you do not rage. You feel the need. You acknowledge it, but you do not cling. You feel the power. You acknowledge it, but you do not dominate. You are aware. You are conscious, and you express appropriately, professionally, skillfully. Shadow at work also means using your integrated qualities. Your integrated anger becomes assertiveness, boundary setting, advocacy. Your integrated power becomes leadership, presence, authority. Your integrated confidence becomes competence, contribution, value. These are your shadow qualities, once disowned, now integrated, now used consciously in service of your work, your contribution, your purpose. That is integration at work. Not performing, not hiding, but being yourself, fully, appropriately, consciously. Living with shadow consciously is a daily practice. Every day you wake up and you choose. You choose consciousness over unconsciousness, integration over splitting, wholeness over performance. You notice when shadow is activated, when you are triggered, when you are projecting, when you are acting out. And you pause, you recognize. You ask, what is this? What part of me is activated? What do I need to integrate? And you work with it. You dialogue with it. You express it consciously. You learn from it. This is the practice. Daily, moment by moment, choice by choice, shadow becomes a teacher. Once you integrate shadow, once you stop fighting it, once you start relating to it, it becomes one of your greatest teachers. Your shadow shows you where you are still split, where you are still disowned, where you are still unconscious. Every trigger is a lesson. Every projection is information. Every pattern is guidance, showing you, here, look here, integrate this, own this, reclaim this. And as you do, as you follow shadow's teaching, you become more whole, more integrated, more conscious, more yourself. The goal is not to eliminate shadow. You cannot eliminate shadow. Shadow is part of being human, part of having an unconscious, part of living in a society that requires some level of performance, some level of conformity, some level of hiding. You will always have shadow. You will always have parts that are less conscious than others, parts that are still somewhat disowned. That is normal. That is human. The goal is not elimination. The goal is relationship. The goal is consciousness. The goal is integration, as much as possible, as ongoing practice, as lifelong work. Here is what changes when you integrate shadow into daily life. You become less reactive, less triggered, less controlled by unconscious forces. You become more responsive, more conscious, more able to choose. You become more authentic, more real, more whole, because you are not splitting yourself anymore, not hiding parts, not performing only acceptability. You are being yourself, all of yourself, shadow included, and that is freedom. That is wholeness. That is integration. You also become more compassionate toward yourself, toward others, because you understand everyone has shadow. Everyone is carrying disowned parts. Everyone is triggered sometimes. Everyone projects sometimes. Everyone acts out sometimes. It is not just you. It is the human condition. So when you see someone acting out, you understand that is their shadow. When you see someone projecting, you understand that is their disowned part. And you have compassion because you know how hard this work is, how uncomfortable, how humbling. And you have compassion for yourself too. When you get triggered, when you project, when you act out, you do not shame yourself. You recognize that was shadow. That was unconscious. And I can learn from this. I can integrate this. I can grow from this. Integration is not perfection. You will not be perfectly integrated. You will not be perfectly conscious. You will still get triggered, still project, still have shadow moments. That is guaranteed because you are human and humans have shadow. But you will be more aware, more conscious, more integrated. And that awareness changes everything, changes how you relate to yourself, how you relate to others, how you move through life, from splitting to wholeness, from unconsciousness to consciousness, from shadow to integration. That is the journey. That is the work. That is what it means to integrate shadow into daily life, consciously, imperfectly, humanly, whole. Chapter 9. Shadow in relationships, the mirror others hold. Relationships are shadow work accelerators. This is not romantic, it is true. Your partner, more than anyone else, more than any other relationship, will trigger your shadow, will activate your disowned parts, will mirror back everything you have repressed, everything you have denied, everything you have pushed into the unconscious. And this is not a flaw in the relationship. This is not evidence that you chose wrong. This is what intimacy does. This is what closeness does. It reveals shadow, activates shadow, brings shadow to the surface so it can be seen, so it can be integrated, so you can become whole. Relationships are not just about love, they are about growth, about healing, about shadow work, whether you intended that or not. You are attracted to your shadow. This is the first truth about shadow in relationships. The qualities you are most attracted to in a partner are often qualities you have disowned in yourself. You are drawn to their confidence because you buried yours. You are fascinated by their freedom because you denied yours. You are attracted to their power because you hid yours. You are not just attracted to them. You are attracted to your shadow, seeing it externalized, living it through them. This is why the attraction is so intense, so magnetic, so compelling. It is not just about them. It is about you, about your golden shadow, trying to come home through them. But here is what happens. The qualities you are attracted to become the qualities that irritate you. The confidence you loved becomes arrogance. The freedom you admired becomes irresponsibility. The power you were drawn to becomes domination. This is shadow dynamics. You are attracted to your disowned qualities, but you have not integrated them. They are still in shadow. So when your partner expresses them, when they live them fully, you start judging, start resenting, start criticizing, because you still cannot own these qualities in yourself. So you project. You make your partner wrong for having what you will not claim. This is the shadow dance. Attraction turning to resentment. Fascination turning to judgment. All because of unintegrated shadow. You are also repulsed by your shadow. The qualities you most judge in your partner are often qualities you have disowned in yourself. Their neediness disgusts you because you buried yours. Their weakness irritates you because you denied yours. Their selfishness enrages you because you hid yours. You are not just judging them. You are judging your shadow, seeing it in them, rejecting it in them the way you rejected it in yourself. And the intensity of your judgment, the strength of your repulsion, shows you, this is mine, this is my shadow. This is what I have disowned. And until I integrate it, I will keep being triggered by it, in them, in everyone. Projection in relationships is constant. You see your shadow in your partner. You judge them for qualities that are yours. You blame them for dynamics that are partly yours. You make them responsible for feelings that are yours. This is not conscious. This is not deliberate. This is projection, automatic, unconscious. Your partner becomes the screen onto which you project your disowned parts. And you react to them as if they are the problem, as if they are the issue, as if fixing them will fix the relationship, that they are not the problem. Your projection is the problem. Your shadow is the problem. And until you own it, until you reclaim it, the pattern continues, the conflict continues, the dissatisfaction continues. Here is the key question for any relationship conflict. What in me is like this? Your partner does something that triggers you. They are late. They forget something. They do not listen. They are distant. They are clingy, whatever it is. And you react. You are angry. You are hurt. You are resentful. And your first instinct is to blame them, to make it about them, to focus on what they did wrong. But that is unconscious. That is projection. The conscious question is, what in me is like this? Where do I abandon myself the way they abandoned me? Where do I not listen to myself the way they did not listen? Where am I distant from myself? Where am I clingy with myself? What is this trigger showing me about my shadow? About my disowned parts? About what needs to be integrated? This does not mean your partner is not responsible. This does not mean their behavior is okay. This does not mean you should not have boundaries. This does not mean you should not address issues. It means before you address their behavior, address your shadow. Before you make it all about them, see what is yours. Because often, the intensity of your reaction is yours. The wound beneath the trigger is yours. The unmet need is yours. And addressing that, integrating that changes the dynamic, changes the relationship, changes you. The shadow dance is when two people trigger each other's shadow in a repetitive pattern. You do something that triggers their shadow. They react. Their reaction triggers your shadow. You react. Your reaction triggers their shadow more. They escalate. You escalate. Round and round. Each person convinced the other is the problem. Each person blaming. Each person defensive. Each person unconscious. This is the shadow dance. And it destroys relationships, creates resentment, creates distance, creates the very disconnection both people fear. And the only way out is consciousness, is recognizing this is shadow. This is projection. This is my disowned part being triggered. And choosing differently. Choosing integration over reaction. Choosing ownership over blame. Integrating your shadow transforms relationships. When you integrate your neediness, you stop judging your partner for being needy. When you integrate your anger, you stop being triggered by their anger. When you integrate your power, you stop feeling threatened by their power. Integration creates space, creates acceptance, creates capacity to be with your partner as they are. Not as you need them to be, not as your projections make them, but as they actually are. Human, flawed, complex, shadow-bearing, just like you. And that acceptance, that space, that is love. Real love, not idealized love, not performed love, but real love. For the whole person, shadow included. Authentic relating requires shadow inclusion. You cannot have real intimacy while hiding shadow. While performing only your acceptable self. While showing only your light. Real intimacy requires showing your darkness too, your messages, your triggers, your wounds, your disowned parts, not as a weapon, not as manipulation, not as blame, but as truth, as vulnerability, as this is me, all of me. The parts I am proud of and the parts I am not. The parts I have integrated and the parts I am still working on. This is authentic relating. This is real connection. Connection between whole people, not partial people, not performed people, whole people. Shadow included. This requires courage, because showing your shadow is risky. Your partner might judge you, might reject you, might use it against you. These are real risks. But hiding your shadow is riskier, because then your partner never knows you, never sees you, never loves you. They love the performed version, the acceptable version, the version without shadow, and that is not you. That is your mask. And being loved for your mask is lonelier than being alone, because you are still not seen, still not known, still not accepted for who you actually are. Shadow work with a partner can be mutual, can be collaborative, can be a shared journey. You both agree, we have shadow. We trigger each other. We project onto each other. And we are going to work with that, consciously, together. When one person is triggered, instead of blaming, they say, I am triggered. This is my shadow. I need a moment. They take responsibility. They work with their shadow, and the other person holds space. Does not take it personally, does not defend, does not counterattack, just holds space, and then they switch. The other person gets triggered. They take responsibility, and the first person holds space. This is mutual shadow work. This is conscious partnership, and it transforms relationships from battleground to playground, from power struggle to growth opportunity, from unconscious to conscious. But shadow work cannot be forced on a partner. You cannot make your partner do shadow work. You cannot force consciousness. You can invite. You can model. You can do your own work, but you cannot force theirs. And if your partner is not interested, not willing, not able, you have a choice. You can stay and do your work anyway, knowing they may never do theirs. Or you can leave if the unconsciousness is too much, if the shadow dancing is too damaging, if the relationship cannot hold your growth. These are real choices, hard choices, but yours to make. Here is what shadow work in relationships teaches you. You are responsible for your shadow, not for your partners, not for their triggers, not for their projections, not for their integration. Yours, you own yours, you work with yours. You integrate yours. And as you do, As you become more whole, more integrated, more conscious, the relationship changes. Either it deepens, becomes more real, more intimate, more conscious, or it ends. Because your partner cannot meet you there, cannot handle your wholeness, cannot tolerate your consciousness. Both outcomes are okay. Both outcomes are growth. Because you are no longer abandoning yourself, no longer splitting yourself, no longer hiding yourself to stay in relationship. You are being yourself, whole, and either the relationship can hold that, or it cannot. And knowing that, living from that is integration, that is wholeness, that is freedom. Relationships do not complete you, they reveal you. They show you what is still split, what is still disowned, what is still unconscious. And if you do the work, if you use the relationship for growth, for integration, for shadow work, you become more complete, not because of the relationship, but because of the work you did within the relationship, the shadow you integrated, the parts you reclaimed, the wholeness you chose. That is the gift of relationship. Not completion, revelation, not fixing, growing, not rescuing, mirroring. Your partner holds up the mirror, shows you your shadow, and you have the choice to integrate, to become whole, together or alone. But either way, whole. Chapter 10. Wholeness through shadow. Wholeness is not perfection. This is the first truth, the most important truth, the truth that changes everything. Wholeness is not becoming flawless, not transcending your humanity, not eliminating your shadow, not becoming all light. Wholeness is integration, is accepting all of yourself, the light and the dark, the acceptable and the unacceptable, the parts you are proud of and the parts you are not. All of it, integrated, conscious, whole. You are not trying to become someone you are not. You are trying to become who you are, fully, completely, shadow included. That is wholeness. And wholeness is available right now, not after more healing, not after more work, not after you finally fix yourself. Now, through integration, through acceptance, through embracing your shadow, your whole shadow, your darkness and your light, all of it coming home. You are light and dark, both. This is not a problem. This is not evidence of failure. This is not proof you are not spiritual enough, not healed enough, not evolved enough. This is humanity. Every human being has light and dark, has acceptable and unacceptable parts, has conscious and unconscious material. You are not special in this. You are not uniquely flawed. You are human, and humans have shadow. All humans, the most awakened, the most healed, the most conscious, they all have shadow, because shadow is not a flaw. Shadow is a feature. Shadow is what happens when you live in a society, in a family, in a culture. That requires some parts to be hidden, some parts to be disowned, some parts to go unconscious. So you have shadow, and you will always have shadow. And that is okay. That is normal. That is human. Shadow work is not one time. This is crucial to understand. You do not do shadow work once and then you are done. You are integrated. You are whole. You are finished. Shadow work is lifelong because shadow is ongoing. You are always encountering new situations, new triggers, new parts that need integration. Life keeps revealing shadow, keeps showing you what is still unconscious, what is still disowned, what is still split. And that is the work, ongoing work, not because you are failing, but because you are growing, because you are evolving, because you are becoming more conscious, more integrated, more whole. With each shadow element you integrate, with each disowned part you reclaim, with each unconscious piece you make conscious. New shadows emerge as you grow. This is actually a sign of progress, not failure. When you integrate one level of shadow, when you reclaim certain disowned parts, you become more whole, more conscious, more yourself. And from that new level of consciousness, you can see shadow that was invisible before. Shadow that was too deep, too hidden, too unconscious, to be accessible earlier. But now you are ready. Now you can see it. Now you can integrate it. So new shadow emerging is not regression. It is progression. It means you are ready for deeper work, for deeper integration, for deeper wholeness. Shadow is the source of creativity. This is what most people do not realize. Your shadow contains not just your darkness, but your depth, your complexity, your uniqueness. The parts of you that are most creative are often the parts that were disowned, the parts that did not fit, the parts that were too different, too weird, too much. Those parts went to shadow. And with them went your creativity, your originality, your unique voice. Integrating shadow releases that, reclaims that, brings your creativity back online. This is why artists often have to access their shadow to create. Have to go into the darkness, into the disowned parts, into the pain, into the chaos. Because that is where the creative material lives, in shadow, waiting to be expressed, waiting to be created, waiting to be brought into form. Shadow is also the source of power, real power, not performed power. Not power over others, but power in yourself. Your power was likely disowned early, was labeled threatening, was deemed too much, was pushed to shadow, and with it went your capacity to take up space, to stand in your worth, to claim your gifts, to be big. Integrating shadow reclaims your power, brings it back, makes it available, conscious, and that power is transformational because you stop shrinking, stop hiding, stop performing smallness to keep others comfortable. You stand, you claim, you express your full power, integrated, conscious, in service of your purpose, your truth, your life. Shadow gives you depth, gives you complexity, gives you the capacity to understand suffering, to hold space for darkness, to be with people in their pain, people who have never done shadow work, who have never integrated, who have never faced their darkness. They are often shallow, often judgmental, often incapable of depth, because they cannot be with darkness, in themselves or others. But when you have done shadow work, when you have faced your darkness, when you have integrated your shadow, you can be with anything, anyone, any emotion, any pain, any darkness. Because you have been there, in yourself, you know it. You have integrated it, and that gives you depth, gives you compassion, gives you the capacity to be truly with others, in their wholeness, their light and their dark. The integrated person is comfortable with paradox, with contradiction, with complexity. They are not one thing, they are many things. They are strong and vulnerable, confident and uncertain, powerful and humble, selfish and generous, angry and loving. All of it, not sequentially, simultaneously, because they have integrated shadow. They do not need to be consistent, do not need to be one-dimensional, do not need to make sense. They can be contradictory, can be complex, can be fully human, without apology, without explanation, without performing coherence. This is integration. This is wholeness, being comfortable with all of yourself, even when all of yourself does not make logical sense, even when all of yourself contradicts, even when all of yourself is messy, complex, human. Living from wholeness means living from all of you, not just your light, not just your acceptable parts, not just your performed self, all of you. You use your integrated anger to set boundaries. You use your integrated power to lead. You use your integrated vulnerability to connect. You use your integrated need to receive. You use your integrated selfishness to care for yourself. All of these qualities, once disowned, now integrated, now available, now used, consciously, skillfully, appropriately, in service of your life, your relationships, your purpose. That is living from wholeness. That is being whole. Not perfect, not flawless, not all light, but whole. All of you, integrated, conscious, expressed. Your shadow makes you human, not broken. This is the reframe, the shift, the truth that changes everything. You have been taught that your shadow is proof you are flawed, proof you are not good enough, not spiritual enough, not healed enough. But that is a lie. Your shadow is proof you are human. Humans have shadow. Humans have darkness. Humans have disowned parts. That is not pathology. That is humanity. And your shadow, your specific shadow, shaped by your specific life, your specific wounds, your specific conditioning, that shadow makes you uniquely you, makes you deep, makes you complex, makes you capable of understanding others, of holding space, of being real. Your shadow is not your flaw. It is your depth, your humanity. Your gift, integration, is not comfortable. It is not easy. It is not a pleasant journey. You have to face what you have been avoiding. See what you have been denying. Own what you have been projecting. Feel what you have been repressing. That is hard. That is painful. That is humbling. But it is also liberating. Because every piece of shadow you integrate, every disowned part you reclaim, every unconscious element you make conscious, you become more whole, more free, more yourself. And that freedom, that wholeness, that selfhood, it is worth the discomfort, worth the pain, worth the journey. You do not need permission to be whole. You do not need to earn wholeness. You do not need to achieve wholeness. You do not need to wait until you are healed enough, good enough, conscious enough. You are already whole. Right now, you just have parts in shadow, parts disowned, parts unconscious, and the work is bringing them home, integrating them, making them conscious, but underneath the shadow, underneath the splitting, underneath the performance, you are already whole. You always were, you always will be. Wholeness is not something you become. It is something you are, something you remember, something you reclaim by integrating shadow, by bringing all of yourself home. Here is what becomes possible when you integrate shadow. When you become whole, you stop fighting yourself, stop splitting yourself, stop hiding yourself. You show up as yourself, fully, in relationships, in work, in life. And that is powerful. That is magnetic. That is real. People can feel it, can sense it, can recognize this person is whole. This person is integrated. This person is real. And that realness attracts, creates connection, creates opportunity, creates the life you have been seeking, not through performance, not through hiding, but through wholeness, through being yourself, all of yourself, shadow included. You also stop judging others so harshly because you understand they have shadow too. They are triggered too. They are projecting too. They are doing the best they can with the consciousness they have, just like you. And that understanding creates compassion, creates space, creates the capacity to be with people as they are, not as you need them to be, not as your projections make them, but as they are, human, flawed, shadow-bearing, beautiful, just like you. And that compassion, that space, that acceptance, that is love, real love, for whole people, shadow included. You become less afraid of yourself, of others, of life, because you have faced your shadow. You have seen your darkness. You have integrated your disowned parts, and you survived. You are whole. You are okay. And if you can face your shadow and survive, you can face anything life brings, any trigger, any challenge, any darkness, because you have already been there, in yourself. You know the territory. You know the way through. You know integration is possible. Wholeness is possible. And that knowing, that experience, that integration, it removes fear, or at least lessens it, because you are not afraid of yourself anymore. Not afraid of your darkness, not afraid of your shadow. And when you are not afraid of yourself, you are less afraid of everything else. Shadow work is a gift, not a burden, not a punishment, not evidence you are flawed. A gift. The gift of knowing yourself fully, deeply, completely. The gift of becoming whole, integrated, real. The gift of reclaiming parts you thought were lost, were gone, were too bad to exist. They are not lost. They are in shadow, waiting for you to see them, to acknowledge them, to integrate them, to bring them home. And when you do, when you reclaim your shadow, you reclaim yourself, your full self, your true self, your true self. And that is the greatest gift, the gift of wholeness, the gift of integration, the gift of being yourself. Finally, fully, completely. This is not the end. This is the beginning of living as a whole person, as an integrated person, as someone who knows their shadow, who relates to their shadow, who integrates their shadow, ongoing, daily, for the rest of your life. Because shadow work does not end. It deepens, it evolves. It continues as you continue, as you grow, as you become more and more yourself, more and more whole, more and more integrated. This is the journey, not to perfection, not to enlightenment, not to transcendence, but to wholeness, to integration, to being fully human, fully yourself. Shadow and light, darkness and brightness, disowned and reclaimed, all of it, all of you, home, integrated, whole. Welcome home, to yourself, to your wholeness, to your shadow. You have done the work. You have faced the darkness. You have integrated the disowned. And you are here, whole, not perfect, not flawless, not all light, but whole, integrated, real. And that is everything. That is the goal. That is the work. Being yourself, fully, shadow included. You are not broken. You never were. You are human, with shadow, with darkness, with disowned parts. And that humanity, that shadow, that darkness, it does not make you less. It makes you whole. It makes you deep. It makes you real. It makes you you and you, whole you, shadow integrated you, real you. That is who you were always meant to be. Not some perfect ideal, not some all-light version. Just you fully, completely, wholly. Welcome home.